Good evening and welcome to the October 13, 2021 East Whiteland Township Board of Supervisor hybrid meeting. At this point in time, I'd like to call to order. I am Scott Lambert. I'm joined by Vice Chair Rich Orlow, Supervisor Sue Drummond, Township Manager John Nagel, and our township staff and solicitor Joe McGrory. The hybrid meeting is being recorded and residents will have an opportunity to comment after each agenda item is discussed by the board. And any non-agenda items that residents wish to discuss will occur during the public comment section. At that time, if you'll please identify yourself, and Donna Weichert will assist you in that. So I'd like to begin with our Pledge of Allegiance. Can all join in? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We are going to move item number 3, agenda item number 3, ahead of the board briefings at this point in time. And at this point, we would like to John Nagel and Steve Brown to discuss about the promotion of Greg Lewis to Chief Fire Officer.
Thank you, Scott. Hopefully everybody can hear me. We went through a very laborious process of screening the candidates. We had 4 in-house candidates for the vacant Chief Fire Officer position. Our longtime Chief Fire Officer, Matt Fink, retired earlier this year. And during this transition, Lauren Nafsinger performed capably and admirably in the interim CFO role, and that allowed us the opportunity to really get to know the candidates firsthand, and it's an interesting process to go through. We actually used a couple of outside experts. One would be Tom Sullivan, who's the retired Director of Public Safety for Montgomery County, and has a lot of background in the fire and EMS business, and also Andy Block, who is got credentials in both fire and police. He's currently the police chief in Upper Moreland, but has an extensive fire background. So they kind of guided us through the process. Steve Brown and myself and HR went through a process to evaluate the candidates. At the same time, Tom Sullivan did that independently. The end result is that the unanimous choice was and is Greg Lewis. And so those are my remarks. Steve, did you have anything that you wanted to add?
Thank you, John. Just briefly, Greg has been with the department now full-time, I believe, for 7 years, and was with us a little before then in a part-time position. And Greg has told us that when he joined the department that he knew he wanted to be a leader in the department. Well, now he is the leader of the department. Greg has literally prepared for this moment and this position since he was 14 years old and started as a junior firefighter. And so I, like John, am very pleased to welcome Greg as our new CFO.
Thanks, Steve. Any other comments?
Scott, I just want to mention that earlier today, Greg did stand before Judge Bailey and was sworn in with the oath of office for the position. So we have a copy of that that Greg provided us with. His family and friends are here. I think it'd be a nice gesture to bring them up and get at least a couple pictures with his family and recognize the event and also recognize with the certificate, yes.
Okay, why don't we make it an official? Why don't we make an official vote?
Exactly.
And then we
Yes.
can.
We need to make the motion, right?
Right, so
very-
Rich, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. Very proud to make the motion to approve the promotion of Greg Lewis to East Whiteland Township Chief Fire Official.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations.
Passes. Congratulations, Greg.
And as Steve has just told me, as part of the ceremony, Greg, if you could come forward and could you ask your wife to come forward as well to finish the ceremony with the pinning of your badge. Greg, could you introduce your wife for us?
Hi, Shirley.
Hi, Charlene.
Let Donna get your picture.
After this ceremony, Greg and his family will be going down to the fire station. They're going to have a informal celebration with family, friends, and also folks from the fire board and mutual aid companies. So if it's okay, if we could take a couple pictures with the family, just because it's such a big event for Greg and his family. If you could take a moment out to do that, yes.
Let's go get your picture, Rich.
Congratulations.
Oh, good. Okay.
You're free to go. Have fun.
There's nothing more we can do to you.
Nice to meet you.
Good night.
Great. moving on with some more good news here. John, if you can discuss about our new human resource manager.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. I'd like to introduce Naveen Rahawi. Naveen has quite a bit of HR experience. She will be filling the Human Resources Manager position. She has extensive experience in the university area, doing HR work, both on the employment side as well as representing some a union in New Jersey as well. She comes to us with an MBA in international business and also in HR and Bachelor of Arts in Political Science from Temple University. And she has maintained all of her professional certifications with the Society of Human Resource Managers. We're very pleased to have Naveen on board. She met briefly with the board earlier today, and she hit the ground running this morning. So pleased to recommend the appointment of Naveen to the Human Resources Manager position.
Any questions? Sue, would you like to entertain a motion to ratify a conditional
I'll
job?
make a motion to ratify the conditional job offer to Naveen Rahawi as Human Resources Manager.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And
Passes.
Scott, I would just ask Naveen, she's with us virtually, if she could just say a few words to introduce herself.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Hear you now.
Yes.
Loud and clear.
Hi. My name is Naveen. I spent the last 5.25 years at Immaculata University as an assistant director of HR. I have about 10 years of HR experience, as John just mentioned, in various areas of HR. So I feel very lucky and blessed that I was the successful candidate for this role, and I'm ready to definitely hit the ground running and meet everybody in person, hopefully very soon. I live locally. I live in Newtown Square, about 15 minutes away from the Township. So I'm very excited to be here, and thank you all for this great opportunity.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome aboard. Looking forward to it.
Same
Congratulations.
here. Thanks. Thank you.
Okay. Getting back in the order of item number 2 with board briefings. We held executive sessions on September 28th at 3 o'clock and on October 13 today at 5 o'clock pertaining to legal, personal, and real estate issues. Next, we have tonight Mark Luca, president of Aqua, will put on a discussion pertaining to some recent activities that had impacted the township back on September 4th. So Mark, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, good evening. Thank you for having me here tonight. I will limit my comments to you this evening with regard to impact from the recent remnants of Hurricane Ida that came through our area on September 1st. And by way of presentation, is that something you wanted me to put up, or do we have that listed?
Mark, this is John Nagel. We have that loaded up on our media, so we can just guide us through it, but we have it ready to go.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Great. Can you go to the next slide, please? So this evening, in the next few minutes, I won't take very long here. We'll talk to you a little bit about Aqua, Pennsylvania. I think you know us well. We are your drinking water supplier. Then we'll speak a little bit to you about Hurricane Ida, the remnants of Hurricane Ida that came through our area on September 1st. Talk a little bit about the operations, the reoperations, and recovery, and then we'll also talk about some communications. So just to level set Aqua, Pennsylvania, some numbers here that you may be familiar with or may have seen in other venues. About 1.5 million people served in 32 counties across the Commonwealth. Significant portions of our operations are in southeastern Pennsylvania. And that becomes important, as we'll see here in a couple of slides, as to our ability to really weather the storm, no pun intended, but weather the storm and keep drinking water flowing for all of our customers. So next slide, please. Can we go to the next slide?
Yeah, Mark, I apologize. Which slide are you looking to
So
see?
you are on slide number 2. If you could go to slide number 3, that would be good.
One second. Let me try resharing. I think this happened once last time.
There we go. All right. So this is an aerial view of our Pickering West water treatment plant. At the 12 o'clock position on the drawing, if you will, on the photograph, would be the buildings there that really are Pickering West. There's pretreatment facilities, chemical facilities, filter buildings, and offices. I think it's pretty clear. You can see there's plenty of flood water around. If that's not real clear, you can get a sense of Valley Forge Road that runs kind of catty corner from the bottom center of the page up through the top left. And you can see there's a big portion of that road that's underwater. The white caps to the left center there is the water that's going over Pickering Creek Dam. And just to give you a sense, there at the bottom are some numbers that I think illustrate the importance of the water treatment plant complex that makes up Pickering East and Pickering West, providing up to 40% of our drinking water for our southeastern Pennsylvania customers. And that becomes important because when we lost the Pickering West complex, it affected significantly our ability to continue to provide water to customers in the way that we would normally do it. And so we began to quickly send out conservation messages that confused some people in, Bucks County or Delaware County, where, a day or two after the storm, it looked quite different. And so we did have to do that. But it gives you a sense when you see some of these numbers and you see the extent of the flooding and some of the other pictures I'm going to show you as to what we were dealing with. Just to give you a sense of 40 million gallons per day, that's about 28,000 gallons a minute. Every day, all day. And likewise, 15 million gallons a day is almost 11,000 gallons per minute all day, every day. So the next slide, John, would be Tropical Storm Ida. And let's go to the next slide. It's a quick timeline here. You all know this, you lived this, but we'll go through it quickly. So September 1, the storms hit. And very quickly after the storms hit, we lost our ability to serve water from the Pickering complex. We lost all of our water and were unable to continue to provide water for a period of time. On September 2nd, communications were lost. We had to distribute to our customers regarding water conservation and conservation through September 14th. And that continued through the end of what we would call the campaign. From September 3rd through September 8th, we really spent time assessing the storm damage, cleaning up, bringing on-site temporary switchgear, and getting the plant back up and running. And that was really attributed to our customers' ability to satisfy demands, to use their expertise, but really to rely on I'm sorry, I'm back. So really to rely on their expertise to maximize operations from other facilities. And we're going to see some pictures on that in a minute. Now, September 3rd was when the boil water advisory went out, and that did affect East Whiteland Township. It also affected Charlestown Township. And we understand that that was a tremendous inconvenience. We did have water trucks out available in the neighborhood. We'll talk to you about that in just a minute. But that was something that was necessary because pressures had dropped in the area below a regulatory minimum where we have to maintain pressure or are required to put people on boil water advisory. You know, on September 10th, just 9 days after the storm came through, we started to see recovery at Pickering West. Pickering East came back up within a day. And again, this is the talent of our people. I'm so proud to be affiliated with this team of professionals who led our way through the storm. On September 13th, we had partial recovery of Pickering Waste again. And then on the 15th, we had communications that were then going out to people to thank them for conservation. Next slide, please. And one more. So let's talk about the operations. Our action plan here was to approach all recovery work with employee safety in mind and the end goal of continued excellent customer service and environmental protection. And this, again, is something that our employees embrace every day, but really work there very diligently, very safely to get customers back into water service, keep them into water service, and protect the environment. And so our plan also included expeditiously and efficiently returning the drinking water complex at Pickering back into service. Now, on this item number 3, which will carry over into the next slide, we're able to divert drinking water from other sources. The next slide is really going to illustrate that. And again, our action plan was to continue working with customers by way of communication. We lost our telephone communications. We lost our internet communications right after the storm that following day. And so as a result, a lot of the communications we were sending out to people were extensive, and there were quite a few of them. And we did that because we knew that people could not call into us to ask questions. So some of the emails, the texts, the voicemails were quite lengthy because we had to get as much information out as we could. Now, on this slide of diverting drinking water from other sources, we did talk about this, but I want to give you a sense of what was happening here. So this is a snapshot of our service territory in southeastern Pennsylvania. And in the upper left-hand section, you'll see a blue box with the letters WTP for water treatment plant, kind of right in between Pickering Creek East and Pickering Creek West. And then on the other parts of the drawings, that's it, perfect, thank you. The other part of this map, you'll see other WTPs. Those are other water treatment plants that we have around the system that interconnects our distribution system to all of our customers through over 5,000 miles of pipe. And by doing that, by having that flexibility, what we did was when we lost the Pickering Creek West plant, which flows south or to the bottom of the drawing and east towards, say, Neshaminy and towards, Bristol and out that way, don't quite get as far as Bristol. But when we lost that flow, what we had to do was to maximize production from other facilities, run them at higher pressures to push water into areas that would normally be served by Pickering. And we were able to do that because of the investment in our infrastructure. Our facilities performed exceptionally. They ran at higher pressures. We had some treatment plants that were putting out water at 270 pounds per square inch, which is extraordinarily high for those of us in the water business. That is an extraordinarily high pressure to run a water treatment plant. And we knew we could do that because we knew that many of our mains are newer, our water mains in the streets, and they literally wouldn't pop out of the ground or burst under the pressure, because had that happened, it would have significantly affected our ability to continue to provide service. Also on this slide, I would say that we worked very closely with other neighboring water utilities. We did work with the Philadelphia Water Department, Bucks County Water and Sewer. We installed temporary pumps around Conshohocken, Marple, Philadelphia Water, and we really created very quickly, through the expertise and talent of our employees, some very creative solutions to continue serving water to people. Next slide, please, John. So let's look at a few pictures of the damage. This tank, if you think that it's crumpled on the right-hand side, it is. This is a 1 million gallon storage tank at Pickering Creek West that collapsed as a result of the flooding that occurred in the plant. Now, this plant would normally provide, this tank rather, would normally provide 1 million gallons of water, and that water would be available for distribution and use by our customers. And of course, this tank is destroyed at this point. We're not going to be able to use it. You can see that it's very significant loss and very significant damage that affected the plant's recovery. Remember, this was historic floods. We had 7 to 8 inches of rain. That's 20% of our annual supply of rain that we typically get in this area. But we got that from about 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. that night on the evening of September 1st. And so there was a considerable amount of rain, and you can see the damage that the flooding has caused here. Next slide, please. So here's a few shots inside the plant. The fellow there on the left is in charge of our automated controls and operations that run major portions of the plant. He's pointing to about the water surface elevation in the plant at the time. So you can see that electronic control center was almost completely underwater. And on the right, you would see a filter control box. You can see the damage that it did, the amount of water, the mud, the debris from the river, as this control box was probably under about 8 feet of water. Next slide. Just some more pictures here. The left picture is what was the control room. The automated control system that Doug was pointing to in the previous slide, well, this is where the operators sat every day on the left-hand side to manage and control operations of the plant. You can see that that's lost as well. Top right, another picture of the filter room that we saw previously. And the bottom, well, that's Valley Forge Road. And you can see there a car that tried to make it through the floodwaters and didn't quite make it. Next slide, please. So the Pickering Creek West response, here you can start to see some photographs, electricians. You can see the tank, the 2 million gallon storage tank being pumped out. The debris that is on top of the tank is river mud. That tank was masterfully cleaned, disinfected, and returned to service without any damage occurring to any of the neighboring facilities on the site in about 9 days. And again, that is a significant feat to have been accomplished. Next slide. We'll talk about the boil water advisory. I know that's near and dear to your hearts. And that boil water advisory was issued on September 3, again, due to low system pressure in East Whiteland and Charlestown townships. And it remained in place until about September 10th. And that's longer than any of us would have ever wanted. But our ability to provide sustained and adequate pressures to these areas resulted in us providing and maintaining that boil water advisory in place for that period of time. But the impact to customers was always on our minds. We were very sensitive to that. And we attempted very quickly to systematically return the plant back to service so that we would have water in the distribution system and not cause additional damage. During that time, we provided water trucks and bottled water to customers. We had 4 locations at East Whiteland Fire, Berwyn Fire, Paoli Fire, and Charlestown. That actually is to say Charlestown Elementary School. Now, the importance of selecting those areas is we want them to be easily identifiable, located for customers, but they're also protected. There's people generally around those areas. In a cold environment, we might ask to put them inside the fire company for freezing. We didn't have that problem here. But those were the places where we had water, and we had people stationing the water trucks so that we could provide water. And you can see in the last 2 bullets, we provided 1,100 gallons of water and about 650 cases of water to customers who came up and needed assistance. Next slide. So what about our communications? One more, please. You can see here that many of you heard us on KYW. We had 30-second and 15-second ads asking customers to conserve water. And that really went around the entire service area that we have in southeastern Pennsylvania. And again, people in Bucks County, people in Delaware County, maybe parts of Chester County might have been scratching their heads a little bit, but we really were trying to get the message out to have people understand how serious this was and that we really needed to solve the problem because of collective conservation and being aware of the problems we were facing. And you can see some of the media outlets that we worked with here scattered around this particular slide. Next page. We did also utilize social and digital media outreach campaigns. Again, Bucks, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery counties. You know, we reached 460,000 people in 12 days and 675,000 impressions also in 12 days on Facebook and Nextdoor. And an impression is really a display. So we know that 675,000 displays reached people in some form or fashion who utilize this social media. And again, maximizing our ability to communicate with people when at times we simply had no phone, we had no internet, we had no way to communicate. So we were maximizing our way to really reach out to people as much as possible. Next slide, and I think that this slide is also something that I understand is near and dear to your hearts. So we have a customer call out where we'll proactively push messages out to customers via telephone calls. We call that our Water Smart Alert. And we had 370,000 calls were sent. We have 1.6 million emails and 1.4 million text messages were sent. And again, I read and was involved in many of these messages, extensive information, much longer than most people would get in a text message or a voicemail message. But again, not having communication, it was really our only way to communicate with people and the media itself. So we were pushing out as much information as we could. But we understand there's some confusion about how to get and receive calls from us. In the box there at the bottom, you'll see a cut or a snippet, if you will, from our website. And this is on our website. If you go to aquaamerica.com, on the right-hand side is a banner. You go down about a third of the way and you'll see something marked Water Smart. If you open that tab, you will see this box. And what we ask customers to do is to enroll, which you see there in the bottom left. You will need your account number to do that. But once you do, then you would receive emails or text messages or phone calls from us whenever there's something going on in your area or regionally. Now, I understand that there were some questions about outreach to the township. And we do have the ability to make phone calls and to receive phone calls, but because our lines were down, we simply didn't have that tool at our availability. We have been talking about, and we're working with John, as a way to push messages out to township officials. And the challenge is, as township officials change over time, we would have to continually update those contacts. And being in 32 counties, it would be very easy to overlook or miss a change and not pick up someone when there might have been a change in a particular position, whether it's an executive director or an elected official. So we are working to try to find out what's the best way to push messages out to all people. Obviously, if people are customers, that's easy. That can happen very quickly. But in this particular case with no phone, it was pretty hard for us to make phone calls or to receive phone calls. But it is something that's on our mind and we're working on as we speak.
Mark, this is Scott. I agree with what your assessment was in terms of the amount of officials, and I think it would be really good for you to focus on that. I think it would be beneficial to everyone involved. I'll give you an example. On September 4th, I started receiving phone calls from our emergency director and our assistant township manager. They were not able to reach out to you. Obviously, as you said, your lines were down. So I started forwarding them my text messages and my emails that I had received from your automated system. So I was able to get that information to them, and then we were able to push it out to our residents. But again, I think it's very important that you can focus on that, and maybe rectify that somewhere down the road. Not easily done, I'm sure, but.
No, Mr. Lambert, you raise a good point, and John brought that to our attention quickly as soon as our phone started to work again. And what we don't want to do is to put a system in place that works today but doesn't tomorrow, because that's going to be extremely frustrating, where you get a call today but then you don't for whatever reason tomorrow, or we're calling the wrong person and you can't stop us from calling you. So I don't want to jump the gun and do something that's inefficient or later incorrect, but you are absolutely correct. We need to fix this, and we have to find an efficient, long-standing way to do so. So I appreciate your comments, and it is certainly on my mind, and I have some people working on it as we speak. Thanks to John.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Next slide, I'll be wrapping up here in just a moment. Actually, this is my last slide. So look, we've talked about these things, but ladies and gentlemen, for those of you hearing my voice tonight and listening to this presentation, I am so proud to be affiliated with the team of professionals that led this recovery. There were so many people involved that worked diligently, and I mean literally around the clock. These people were working in very hazardous conditions, electrical wires that were down 4,000 volts in some cases, slippery conditions where it would have been very easy to fall over and get hurt, standing water in some cases that may have been a problem if you weren't careful. These were very, very bad, seriously hazardous conditions. And the team that is Aqua Pennsylvania came together. You should be proud of them as your drinking water provider. I know that I am, and I hope you feel the same way. The second bullet we did talk about, our 4-county water system really allowed us to redirect a lot of the flow around the system. Ladies and gentlemen, that just doesn't happen. That's the vision that people before me have had as we started to invest in our infrastructure, and we utilize that and maximize our operations. We talked about the quick response of our people. We talked about neighboring communities and water supply. And we even assisted a neighboring community who had uncontrollable leaks and was unable to sustain pressure in their systems, where our people took the time to go out, find their leaks, and help them fix it. And then the last one, again, we talked about that, is we need to push, we need to test on these existing communications with community leaders we serve. I think that's probably one of the biggest takeaways, and we're going to continue to work on that, I assure you. The last slide is really my closing slide, and I do want to thank you for being our customer. I want to thank you for your support, and I'm here to answer any questions that I can. Thank you so much this evening.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions from the board?
No, I have not. I just want to thank you for all your efforts to recover from this. Even if you had known the extent of this storm before it happened, in all likelihood, there would not have been anything that could have been done much to prevent the damage. So it was such a devastating storm. So
thank you.
It's nice to hear the future hope for improvements and the changes for the future. That God forbid if it ever happened again, other things will be in place.
Thank you very much.
Can I assume that you're going to build taller walls around Pickering West or something?
I'm not sure who asked the question. I don't mean to chuckle at the question. I'll tell you, that's the many $million question. We have to ask ourselves, what's the prudent thing to do? What's the risk? How do we think about protecting? Frankly, is it taller flood walls? Is it relocating the plant? Is it relocating portions of the plant? We're putting everything on the table. I think Todd Dewar, my vice president of production, is on the line. He is one of the instrumental leaders in what we did here. And, we challenge ourselves, and we're going to challenge ourselves more to do the right thing, to look at this, to make sure that within our control, this doesn't happen again. Todd did an outstanding job for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. It was Sue Drummond who asked the question. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Donna, I would ask that, are there any public comments that have come through for Mark?
Yes, there is one. Barbara Ann Thav, can you unmute yourself, please?
Hi, good evening. Barbara Ann Thav, Broadleaf Trail. Mark, thank you for that presentation, and thank you to all of the folks involved from Aqua and the Township for all the efforts. One thing two things really. One is I didn't hear you talk about the confusion that residents experienced with regards to the boil water advisory. And I know you've heard it from a million people, but just in case you haven't heard it, it was very confusing to understand where the map was showing where the boil water advisory was in our township. So that's just one thing. And the second thing is there was a few things, and I don't want to dismiss the devastation because it was really significant. But having lived in Hurricane Alley for a very long time, usually there's a lot of disaster recovery processes already in place. So quite frankly, I was sort of surprised to hear that you didn't have disaster recovery for your phone systems and different things like that, and that it was taking John Nagel to recommend doing some sort of outreach to community officials. I would hope you have sort of a disaster recovery playbook. And if not, I think we have to recognize that Pennsylvania, unfortunately, is experiencing a lot of different and excessive storms due to climate change, and that these things have to take priority. But anyway, it was very confusing. The map on the township website, you couldn't really read it. It was very hard to figure out if you were in the zone. If you did reach somebody, one person would tell you, yes, you should boil water, and then others would say, no, you didn't need to. So from the side of the township that I'm on, it was just very confusing. And I just wanted to share that. But thank you again. And, I'm glad to hear that all of your employees and staff were safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stav. I'd like to speak to a couple of your points, and thank you so much for your kind words and your questions. So the confusion of the boil water advisory, yes, I did hear that many times. And there were a couple of things that were going on in the background that caused some of the confusion. One is there were at least two other boil water advisories in southeastern Pennsylvania that were going on. There was one in Norristown, and then there was one in parts of Bucks County. That had nothing to do with us. However, what was happening was when we were issuing boil water advisories, it would get on the news and it started to be a bit confusing. That added to the confusion. It wasn't the only source of confusion for sure. And I think our maps could have been better. And I think we started to rectify that as it went through. But the initial swath, if you will, was a bit confusing. And then the other things came on and made it more confusing. So I understand that. I think you have an excellent point. And it is something that we discussed during the event and are discussing as part of our recovery. Now, as far as the disaster recovery, we actually have a DART team, Disaster Area Recovery Team. And unfortunately, what happened with the phone system was while we had redundancy, the redundancy was in the basement of a building in the city of Philadelphia that was under several feet of water. I don't think anyone ever experienced or expected that, but I can assure you that that too is being fixed and that we're going to attempt to make sure that that never happens. But Ms. Thav, you're absolutely correct and your points are well taken, and I appreciate them as well. Thank you.
Scott, if I may, just want to add one more thing. I want to thank Mark, not just for being here, but Aqua did something that at least I appreciate professionally. They retained Greg Carey, who was formerly the government affairs representative for PICO. And in working with Greg over the years, I know it's taken PICO quite a bit to perfect their communications options in the event of an emergency. So I have good feeling about how Greg is part of the team there, and he'll help Mark and others come up with plans that will make this process even better. Thanks, Mark.
Thank you, John. And yes, Greg is on, as you can see, and he is a wealth of knowledge and experience that I enjoy listening to and working with. Thank you.
And thank you for coming out, taking our questions, and hearing our concerns.
Thank you. Have a great evening, and thank you so much for your time and being a customer. We truly appreciate your support. Have a great evening.
Good night, Mark.
Good night.
Moving on, under 2C, some exciting news coming out of our Great Valley High School schools. In the past month, 16 students from Great Valley High School were named semifinalists in the National Merit Scholarship Competition, and we wanted to congratulate them on their success on that. I'm adding one point for Lauren Nafziger. I wanted to reach out from the board and thank you for stepping in the role of fire chief during the period of time where a lot of things that could have gone wrong did go wrong. Pandemic, Hurricane Ida, Aqua Communications, emergency declarations. And Lauren, you did a fabulous job, and the board wants to thank you for your efforts. In addition, I would like to announce to the Township will follow up with our, I should back up. Regarding Bishop Tube, I just wanted to announce to people that are following the Bishop Tube environmental issues that the DEP is holding a remediation action plan virtual meeting, and it's been scheduled for November 9th at 6:30. And the Township will follow up with our own hybrid meeting scheduled for November 4th. And one additional meeting will be determined in short order. Details are listed in our website pertaining to the DEP information, and we will be adding information pertaining to our own hybrid meeting for Bishop Tube.
So
Moving on to item, I'm
Scott,
sorry.
I'm sorry, there's a question. I'm sorry. Deb Mobile, can you unmute yourself, please?
Since you brought it up, I'll make my comment now instead of waiting for public comment. I am trying to restrain my anger over the lack of transparency and communication with the DEP concerning their recommendations for the Bishop Tube site. We have been waiting for the DEP to resolve this situation for 21 years, and their proposed rollout of information continues to be unacceptable. Last summer, we were led to believe that the DEP would be hosting a follow-up meeting after the recommendations were released. We have now been informed that the DEP will not offer us the opportunity to meet in person, to ask questions, or to obtain follow-up information. Instead, we will have a Zoom lecture where people must sign up in advance to watch. Furthermore, people must also write an email in advance if they wish to speak. And then we must wait for an invite to see if everything went through as requested. I am a retired public school teacher and found the link poorly written and designed. I still have a number of questions about how the sign up is supposed to work. If the DEP had to answer to a group of students or parents, there would be hell to pay. Although we have had to make many accommodations during this pandemic, I am wondering why the state has not chosen a hybrid format. What about citizens who are not comfortable with this electronic format? Do they not have a right to be heard? What about the opportunity to have follow-up questions answered or to obtain clarification? None of that is available in this kind of a format. It seems to me that the state lacks the courage to meet with us face to face. After 21 years, they have still not stepped up to do their job, which includes working for us, the citizens. In closing, I was going to ask for more information. I certainly hope the township will be doing a better job of releasing information and communication. I am glad that you are moving on scheduling those 2 dates. And my additional question for that will be, will the consultant that the township has hired be available during those dates for questioning?
Deb, the DP's meeting is a virtual public meeting, according to what's on the website. And
That's
yes,
not, if you read the instructions, there is no way to ask a question once the meeting begins. You have to sign up 24 hours in advance to make a statement.
Okay.
That's all they're allowing. So if something comes up and I don't understand, I can't say, excuse me, can you clarify that? Not only that, I mean, even the way it's written, it doesn't even make sense if you read back and forth, whether you're supposed to wait to get an answer about this before you sign up for that. It's very confusing. And it's not what we were led to believe we were going to get. I just, like I said, I don't think they had the nerve to meet with us. I truly don't.
Okay. I understand your point. And on the second part, BSTI will be participating in the township meetings.
Excellent.
They will
Excellent.
be with us and to answer questions.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much for providing that service.
You're welcome.
And thank you for listening to my tirade.
I understand.
Take care.
Okay. Moving on to motions for advertise. John, nothing major here at this point in time for budget workshops? Anything you want to add to that?
No, Scott, just we're required by law to advertise our budget workshops. We have 2 recommended to happen. One's on Tuesday, November 19th at 9:30 a.m. And the second one is on Wednesday, October 27th at 9:30 a.m.
Okay, thank you. John Yield, would appear as though,
Excuse me, Scott.
well, I guess
need
we
a
should
motion
take,
for that.
we should take a motion to approve those budget workshops. Rich?
Sure, yeah, make a motion to approve the scheduling of the 2022 budget workshops. First Tuesday, October 19th, 9:30, and second Wednesday, October 27th at 9:30 a.m.
Can I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So approved. Next, John Yield. I don't think there's anything major on this, but we're looking at motion to advertise for some items to sell on municipal bid.
Correct. We have the truck that we replaced, lawnmower that we replaced, and just some miscellaneous items that were listed out there that are past their useful life for us that we're looking to sell on municipal bid.
I think that's the first time I've seen a lawnmower go out. But
Yeah.
I'll entertain a motions.
I'll make a motion to approve the items to sell on municipal bid listed on the agenda, including a jumping jack trench compactor, whatever the heck that is.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. John, you're still up pertaining to our oil and diesel fuel bid?
Yes, we had our bid opening in late September for our diesel fuel and heating oil bids. Prices were substantially higher than last year, but still they were competitive to what the market rates are, and we got in before it really spiked here. But for heating oil, we're paying 90 cents a gallon more than last year. Diesel fuel is $1.08 more a gallon than last year. So it is quite an increase, but that's the way the market is at this point.
Okay.
And that was also, the low bid was Riley and Sons, who was, they've been a supplier for us for years, and they're now a division of Rhodes Energy.
Okay. Rich, I'll entertain a motion for you.
Sure, make a motion to approve the heating oil and diesel fuel bid from Riley and Sons for 2022.
Do I have a second?
A second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes. We have no public hearings at this point in time. Moving on to Agenda 7. Zach, you can lead us through the development applications.
Sure, thanks, Scott. The first item here is a consideration to render a decision on a request for a waiver of land development. This is for a salt and equipment shed for Vanguard at their Malvern West campus. Essentially, they currently house a lot of their equipment and materials within an unused part of the parking lot at the Malvern West campus. That's the one right there off 29 near the Worthington. They were looking to consolidate some of that into an actual storage building with a small parking area. It will utilize an existing stormwater basin. This has been reviewed by Arrow. There's just a handful of cleanup items, and this approval would be conditioned upon not only satisfying those engineering comments, but also some additional conditions about containing the materials and preventing sort of runoff into the surrounding areas.
Any questions from the board?
I read the resolution. I think it covers compliance with everything that Arrow requested, particularly about runoff and where the water would be diverted to and things like that, correct? The resolution has that covered?
Yeah, there's some additional conditions sort of spelled out in there, belts and suspenders, but it's also conditioned specifically on his outstanding review comments.
Okay. Okay.
Which are primarily cleanup at this point.
Right.
It's been through, this is their third submission. So.
Right. Okay.
I have no questions.
Donna, any questions from the public?
No, they're not.
Okay, thank you. Is that any? I'll entertain a motion, Sue.
I'll make a motion to waive land development for 09-2021 for Vanguard Salt and Equipment Shed.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes. Okay, Zach, we've got a couple extension of time.
Yeah, so the first one here may be a relatively new application for the board. This is an application that was received a couple of months ago now. Staff had some preliminary comments regarding zoning. We essentially, I don't want to say we sent the application back, but we provided some preliminary comments and have been waiting on a resubmission. In the meantime, we've requested this extension to just provide a little bit of time to work through those. So this would be an extension through January, or to January of 2022, believe it or not. The next is for the school district. We're currently reviewing their second submission, and they intend to be on the planning commission meeting this coming month. We'll review those letters once received by our consultants and determine that, but this extension would carry the school district through the next two planning commission meetings and then the following two board meetings, just to provide some additional time for review. The third, I think it makes sense to accept the extension at this point, but they've actually advised in the meantime that they'll be withdrawing this application. So if we want to just go ahead and make that motion, we'll accept it and we'll clean up sort of the administrative aspect of getting a withdrawal letter and all that for the file. But that's the overview of those three.
Which one's getting withdrawn? Kaufman?
Kaufman, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay. And on the Summit Road land development, that is for three units?
Yeah, that's correct. There's an existing lot there that's fairly large. The existing home would stay. And the idea would be to carve out a new lot along Summit and then a sort of a flag lot behind the existing house. So it'd be 3 lots total, but the existing house would remain.
Okay. Why don't I entertain a motion on all 3? Rich?
Sure. Make a motion to extend the time to render a decision on plans listed in items 7C, 1, 2, and 3.
Do I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye. Passes. We have no release of financial security and no motion advertising for ordinance amendments. So we'll move on to Ted Locker and some property maintenance codes updates on some recent activity in the township. Ted, I'll leave it up to you to lead us through that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening. So recent updates, I guess one of the major one is 577 Lancaster Avenue was finally demolished as of Monday. Can you hear me okay?
You can hear you on the Zoom. You must need to turn up the room.
You can pull it closer to me here. So 577 Lancaster Avenue was a burned out building that's been sitting there for approximately, I think, 6 years. Was finally demolished on Monday, and the cleanup continues. We should be done, wrapped up pretty much tomorrow from my understanding. Following a few others, some other cleanup on Kelmar, had one this week also on Carroll Lane. Following 53 Village, that is again scheduled for settlement, and they're trying to get through that with the mortgage company, and that hopefully will be done this month. Actually served warrants today up on King Road for a property that has been, I guess, has a lot of trash and junk cars, and actually received a complaint today over on Birch with regard to running a business out of a house. So that is the majority of the property maintenance issues.
Okay, thank you.
And then, I guess moving on, if I may, under zoning hearing board applications and consideration for the board, Green Fig had originally asked to have a discussion regarding the decommissioning of the sewer treatment facilities. Apparently that's been worked out, and that is off the agenda tonight. Second application is for What a Good Dog. This is a special exception according to 241 attachment 1 to allow a kennel in the existing flex space building, and this is at 35 Sproul Road in the industrial zoning district. So basically it's in the same 3-ton road area as their main business, but they want to occupy another space. Second application is for Leon Celio and Sonia Montesdecio. It's a special exception. This is a non-conforming residence in a frontage commercial zoning district, and they want to put an addition onto the house. I guess relatively minor. Third application is actually from G-Rex Camp, the fourth, a special exception. This is to allow horses on as an accessory use on an R1 property. Our code requires a minimum of 3 acres. This is a 5-acre tract, and they are looking to allow the horse use on that property.
So Ted, if I can circle back to, with the board asking any specific questions, I might lead off on What a Dog on number 2.
Yes, sir.
At this point in time, have the residents that could be impacted by the outside dog kennel situation up on Judith Lynn Way, have they been notified?
I'm not aware if they've been notified yet. The applicant was notified that we required a more extensive notification area. So I know the solicitor's office for the zoning board did just recently send out in the last couple days the notice to the applicant. So that should be going out any time now.
Joe, is this something where we can pend until that information and response from the residents that would be impacted?
Well, I don't know how you measure the response of the residents to determine whether to oppose it or not.
Well, how about if just on the basis if they haven't even notified yet?
Well,
Once they've been notified.
it would be, they're operating in due course. It's not, they aren't avoiding notifying them. It's not due yet to do it. It's like any other zoning application. The solicitor drafts a notice and then you notify the residents.
Right.
There's nothing unusual with this one.
Where is this building? This is 35 Sproul Road. This is not on 3 Ton Road?
It's actually on the corner of Sproul and 3 Ton.
Oh, okay.
Now, there's actually a couple buildings there, but yes, so it's in that same vicinity.
Yeah, the address on Google shows up at the corner of 352 and 30. It's not there.
No.
Okay.
It's on the corner of 3 Ton.
Cigar store, maybe.
Cigar store, right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Okay. Oh, I see. It's in Hope Veterinarian Specialists.
Yes, correct. It's the same buildings that Hope is in.
Next to the brewery?
Yes.
In the vet center.
Right,
They want to keep dogs in a
Right.
vet center.
right. Okay.
Right.
Ted, I thought this was supposed to be an outside kennel area. Am I
No, I'm not aware that it's
am I wrong on
outside.
that?
It says flex space is what they're occupying. So, occupying some portion of the building.
Okay. So it would be an enclosed kennel run.
I would assume that's what they're proposing.
Kennels are inside. The dogs have to go outside periodically, but kennels are inside.
Correct.
Yeah.
I don't see any reason we should send the solicitor. This is not an unusual case.
I mean, as long as the notices went out, which they'll have to produce.
And
They have to produce that at
zoning
the
hearing
hearing.
board's going to
Right.
ask anyway.
Right, yeah, they'll have to produce it knowing that it was our requirement.
Correct.
So, okay. We'll let them figure it out.
I don't see a reason to send the solicitor on any of these.
Okay. Ted, I have one question on item 4 with the special exception pertaining to the horses. Is there a limited number of horses that can be allowed in this special exception?
Our code does not specifically enumerate the number of horses. It just says you need a minimum of 3 acres to have horses. On a 5-acre property, some would look at it as maybe 2 horses on the 3 acres and 1 per additional acre. So you may have 4 horses. They haven't announced exactly how many horses they're looking for at this point. But I would assume the zoning hearing board would probably put a limit on something of that nature.
Right.
Yeah. And they'll probably look at, I mean, the property borders 401, so
Correct.
I would think they want a pretty good fence protecting from horses going out on Route 401 too.
401,
So I'm
yeah.
sure they're good enough to know that. Okay.
Okay. Donna, any public comments?
No, there are not.
Okay. And I guess we're in agreement that we do not need to send a solicitor pertaining to these 4 items. 3 items that are live.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ted. Donna, moving to item number 9. Are there any other public comments coming in?
No, there are not.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. As usual, I'll read in its entirety, and then if there's any questions, please stop me and ask. 10A, approve the meeting minutes from September 8th, 2021. 10B, ratify the payment of bills in the amount of $898,301.54 for September of 2021. Accept the treasurer's report as of September 30th, 2021. 10D, extend the collective bargaining agreement for firefighters and EMT IAFF 1 year through December 2022. 10E, approve a proposal from Brownfield Science and Technology in the amount of $50,000 for technical evaluation, for the technical evaluation grant for Bishop Tube. 10F, ratify the extension of WatchGuard warranty for in-car and body-worn cameras in the amount of $8,977.50. 10G, ratify the proposal from PJ Riley Contracting for Barbara Drive emergency storm sewer repair in the amount of $13,800 with an option to replace the driveway totaling $7,550. 10H, approve the resolution of support and financial commitment of $150,000 for Charlestown Township's grant application to PennDOT Multimodal Transportation Fund for Phoenixville Pike and Sidley Yellow Springs Road intersection improvements. Any specific questions?
I just have one comment, very minor, on the minutes from September 8th. On the first page, the 5th paragraph says, receiving communication from Aqua has not been difficult. I think you mean it has been difficult. So other than
Yes, I
that, I'm
do.
fine with everything.
Okay, I'll change that.
Just one word.
Okay.
Difference of one word. Okay, Sue, I'll entertain a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda as read with the one word change.
Do I have a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. John, board, anyone else? Any other business we need to attend to?
I think we're good.
I think so. Well, thanks, everyone. And the meeting is adjourned.
Yep. Good night.